Hey y'all, Austin here with Outer World Media. Welcome back to another book review, guys. This time we are talking about Louis L'Amour. We are talking about The Wagon Train. If you guys don't know what that is, there's quite a few of us that are reading a series and kind of conversing about it on Discord, as well as posting our reviews of the book and whatnot, trying to see what each other thinks of it, and just trying to knock out a 17 book series. The good news about it, though, guys, the books aren't that long and they're very, very entertaining. We are talking specifically this time around, though, guys, about book number 5. That is Ride the River. Book, like I said, book number 5 in the Sackett series chronologically. Kind of getting into this, what is Ride the River about? This story follows Echo Sackett. She has gone to the big city of Philadelphia from the mountains of Tennessee to go get a inheritance, if you will. We find out that her and her family happen to come across this page in a newspaper that's advertising if anybody has any information on a Sackett family member, the youngest Sackett family member, to please come to Philadelphia to collect this inheritance. So Echo decides to leave the cushy mountains of Tennessee, the backwoods of Tennessee, if you will, to head to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to the big city to go get this inheritance. And so we follow Echo as she gets there, and she comes across this lawyer who's kind of not wanting to give her the inheritance and whatnot. And so, trouble ensues from there. She ends up coming across somebody who knew her family member, one of her family members. I'll leave it at that. Quite a few years ago and whatnot. And that's the thing with this series, I will say. Granted, we're only 5 books in, but it seems like everybody in the new world, as it's considered, knows a Sackett somehow, some way. They are, very, very early settlers, but it seems like everybody somehow, some way knows of the Sacketts, if not knew somebody in the Sackett family at one point in time. But again, so Echo comes across this other lawyer who says, "Hey, hold up, this guy's a little bit of a troublemaker. Doesn't do things neat and clean. He kind of, oh, what's the term? He's kind of a weasel, a rat, if you will. He tries to do stuff his way and get something out of it somehow, some way. And so again, this story follows Echo and her trying to get this inheritance and all the trouble that ensues after she finally gets this inheritance and tries to get back home to the mountains of Tennessee. And so we see this adventure that she goes on, to get this inheritance, not only just for her, but for her family, and as the story goes on, we find out that, as we would expect with the Sackett family, they don't rely on very much as far as cushiony stuff. They don't need the nicest dresses. They don't need the flashiest guns. They just kind of need what will get them by, and they're not unthankful for when they have stuff to get them by. They don't require more than what they absolutely need as far as the bare essentials go. But some of the Sackett family members are getting a little older, so they would like some nicer stuff, if you will. In this book, the main point of view is from Echo, who is a female. And I know a couple people on the wagon train were talking about how very interested they are to read a Louis L'Amour book where, the main character is a female. Because we get in some Louis L'Amour books, we get a little bit of female, point of views, but not a whole lot. And I was one of those who was very interested in reading that. I say one of them. Everybody was interested. And I will say, like I've said before, Louis L'Amour does a great job with his female characters. While they may get into, some trouble or need some help, they are not damsels in distress by any means. He might have one or two characters that have been like that. But for the most part, his female characters are very, very strong women. They're driven, they have goals, they can take care of themselves for the most part. And so I really enjoy that. There was something that was a little bit different in this series, kind of getting the point of view from a woman mostly. This, as mostly the Mora books go, not that very long of a book, but I really, really enjoyed this one. Again, This is one I definitely, probably will go back to reread again, just because it's unique in the way that it's, a female point of view for the most part. There's, it jumps around a little bit. And we get some male point of views, but Echo definitely is somebody who can take care of herself. She is a younger woman. They say she's 16 in this book and whatnot. So by those standards back in those days, she is kind of a younger woman is what they refer to her as. But again, guys, Ride the River by Louis L'Amour, great book. I really, really enjoyed this one quite a bit. This is one I will probably be rereading, as I plan on rereading all Louis L'Amour books at one point in time. But again, Ride the River, book number 5, still a strong entry in the Sackett series. I don't think there's been one so far that I haven't enjoyed. There's been one or two that they've had a little bit of, I don't even want to say disappointment. It's just stuff that I'm like, okay, that's a little far fetched. But that's something I will say. I've really enjoyed every book so far. We're 5 books into this series. I've enjoyed every book so far. Again, with the exception of a couple minor nitpicks. But again, Ride the River by Louis L'Amour. Pick this book up. It is a good one, especially if you're wanting something that's a little different for a Louis L'Amour book, but kind of that. And that's something else about this book I will say real quick. This isn't necessarily a western. This is still kind of a more of a historical fiction book. This does take place in like the 1800s, I think. So not really out in the West just yet. It's still more of a historical fiction, but still a good book to read. Again, guys, pick this book up, give it a try. Thank you.